The modern FBI commands 38,000 employees and a $4.8 billion budget, tracking almost any digital footprint on Earth. But this massive scale shrinks down to a tiny dot. In 1908, the entire agency was exactly 34 borrowed investigators. No badges, no guns. Local police forces openly laughed at them. Congress routinely ignored their funding requests. They were a bureaucratic afterthought, with no real jurisdiction. So how does a powerless group of 34 men evolve into the most feared intelligence force in the democratic world? The answer lies in a repeating historical equation. Whenever the American public is faced with a terrifying apocalyptic threat, they willingly trade their constitutional liberties for the promise of safety. They hand the government a blank check. On a summer night in 1916, German saboteurs detonated 2,000 tons of explosives at Black Tom Island in New York Harbor. Windows shattered 40 miles away. The masses' industrial violence tearing apart Europe had finally reached American shores, and citizens felt entirely vulnerable. Stepping into the Justice Department amid that chaos was a 22-year-old clerk named Edgar Hoover. He immediately grasped a crucial dynamic. Mass fear could be captured and organized into political power. Following a series of anarchist bombings in 1919, Hoover put that theory into practice. He orchestrated the Palmer raids, dispatching agents to smash into homes at midnight. They dragged thousands of suspected radicals into the street and deported hundreds without a single trial. The raids were brutal, but they worked exactly as intended. The Bureau learned its foundational lesson. The public will applaud the suspension of basic rights as long as the targets are labeled as dangerous enemies. During the grinding poverty of the Great Depression, citizens idolized outlaw bank robbers like John Dillinger. The Bureau turned the pursuit of these men into a highly publicized national spectacle, successfully transforming their own image from anonymous clerks into celebrated crime fighters. With World War II looming, President Franklin Roosevelt recognized the utility of this newly popular force. Behind closed doors, he issued a quiet directive granting the FBI sweeping authority to monitor potential foreign sympathizers within the United States. This diagram illustrates the result, the Security Index. With direct presidential permission, the FBI built a massive filing system evaluating the threat level of hundreds of thousands of American citizens, rating them and tracking their movements entirely outside of congressional oversight. Then the Cold War began, and American codebreakers intercepted a terrifying reality. Soviet spies had successfully infiltrated the highly classified Manhattan Project, stealing the precise blueprints required to build an atomic bomb. With Stalin holding the bomb, the Bureau's mandate moved into the shadows. The pursuit of street criminals was superseded by a system of domestic surveillance, authorized to monitor any citizen deemed a risk to national survival. Over his decades in power, Hoover hoarded sensitive files on mistresses, mob ties, and backroom deals involving at least 8 presidents and countless lawmakers. He rendered himself virtually immune to political oversight. When Lyndon B. Johnson took office, he needed an aggressive force to dismantle the Ku Klux Klan in the South. He gave Hoover massive funding, advanced wiretapping tools, and complete operational freedom to destroy the Klan's leadership. But Hoover despised the civil rights movement. He took the exact same surveillance tools LBJ authorized to fight racist terror and quietly turned them against black leaders, bugging the hotel rooms of Martin Luther King Jr. and orchestrating raids against the Black Panthers. Only after Hoover died in 1972 did the extent of this surveillance leak out. In 1975, the Senate's Church Committee dragged the Bureau into the light, exposing decades of illegal wiretaps and successfully forcing strict new limits on the agency's reach. The exposure proved a difficult reality. When a government builds a powerful machine to hunt monsters, that machine will eventually be turned inward against its own citizens if left unguarded. By the summer of 2001, field agents in Phoenix and Minneapolis had already flagged foreign nationals taking flight lessons. Yet federal wall protocols explicitly barred intelligence analysts from sharing these fragmented reports with criminal investigators, leaving specific warnings buried in separate databases until the morning of the attacks. In the grief and anger following September 11th, Congress tore down those internal walls. Through the Patriot Act, they handed Director Robert Mueller sweeping new authority to demand records without a judge and multiply secret wiretaps across the country. Driven by the absolute necessity to prevent another attack, the American government constructed a sprawling surveillance net, vastly expanding the Bureau's ability to track communications within its own borders. By the late 2010s, that multi-billion-dollar counterterrorism apparatus remained fully intact, but the external threats had shifted, leaving an incredibly powerful intelligence engine waiting for a new commander. When Donald Trump entered the White House, he faced an immediate FBI investigation into his campaign's ties to Russia. To the new president, the Bureau was not an impartial protector, but a hostile deep state actively trying trying to subvert his administration. The tension erupted in May 2017 when Trump demanded loyalty from FBI Director James Comey, and Comey refused. The president fired him, triggering retaliatory special counsel investigations that permanently fractured the relationship between the Oval Office and the Bureau. Securing his political return in the 2024 election, Trump set out to settle the score. He nominated loyalist Kash Patel to run the FBI, explicitly tasking him to clean house, purge the old guard, and point the Bureau's investigative machinery directly at former intelligence leaders. The organization, originally designed as America's immune system, now faces a structural crisis. After a century of absorbing emergency powers to fight external threats, the FBI has evolved into a highly centralized force capable of being aimed squarely at the host body itself.